Hello everybody, welcome to Dude with a Fork. My name is Ken. On today's episode of Ken Cook Stuff, I am making cheaper, healthier tacos. And how am I going to do that? I'll show you. Let's get started. Alright, so what I have here are some little prime beef sliders that I bought at Sam's Club, and I put them in the freezer because every once in a while I want a burger. So you can take one of these out, thaw it out, let it thaw out overnight, fry it up in a pan. I have about 8.3 ounces of this to make tacos. And you know, usually it takes a whole pound of ground beef to make tacos, enough to feed 4 people, right? So you need to have a secret ingredient. And what is my secret ingredient? Chili beans. I'm going to use half ground beef, half a pound of ground beef. We're going to add some mild chili beans. This is going to make this dish healthier because beans are basically fat-free and cholesterol-free, and they have a lot of fiber in them. And they also have protein, which you still have in the ground beef. This ground beef is about $5 a pound. This can was 77 cents at Aldi. So I'm taking something that would cost $5 for the main ingredient down to $3.25. That's a huge improvement budget-wise, I think, and they taste just as great. So I'm also going to be throwing in some onion and some cumin and some garlic powder. So I'm going to get these thawed out and get them browned up, and then I will meet you over at the stove. All right, so here we have our ground beef, and I spared you watching me cook this up because, you know, everybody knows what ground beef frying in a pan looks like. So I had to turn the pan off a little bit to set things up over here in the kitchen, and so it's taking a little bit to come back up to temperature. You can see there's I don't know how well that will show up, but there's a little bit of fond forming in this cast iron pan, which is good. There's some browning on the meat. There's no fat coming out of this. There's a little bit, I mean, but it's practically nil. I actually cooked a lot of the water out. I mean, I haven't drained any of this. A lot of times people get to a point where they're like, well, time to drain the fat. But really, if you look, you can see the liquid in the bottom is boiling. And what they're actually cooking out or throwing out is just the water. So I'm going to let this come back up to temperature here. Got this pan on medium because I want things to move along fairly quickly. I don't think tacos should be one of those dishes that takes 8 hours to make. So although, you know, slow cooker tacos, that could be a thing. But anyway, so now that this is going, right, I'm going to come in here with the onion, and this is going to seem like a lot, okay? But first of all, I like a lot of onion, and secondly, this is only half the usual amount of ground beef. So if the ground beef in here were doubled, this would not seem like a whole lot of onions. So I'm going to get these cooked down, and we'll come back in just a little bit. All right, so you can see these onions have cooked down quite a bit, and there's going to be a long simmering process at the end of this, so they're going to cook down even more. And if you want to, you can cook them down even more than this. Everything's up to you. One little tip I will give you when cooking with cast iron: if things get too hot, and usually you want to err on the side of things being a little cooler. But if things get too hot, with a normal pan, you would just go in and turn the heat down. But cast iron holds heat so well that what I like to do is also keep a little bit of water on hand. So if I'm afraid something's going to burn, I'll turn the heat down. I'll put a little bit of water in here. And if you have distractions in your house, like small children or animals, and you need to turn the pan off, it's always a good idea to go ahead and turn the pan off, add some water just to keep things from burning. That way you can go take care of the rest of your life and then come back, and generally by the time you've dealt with stuff, that water's cooked off. So what I'm going to do is now I have some of this tomato paste in a tube, so I'm going to add, that's approximately a tablespoon, that's approximately another tablespoon. And I love this stuff in the tube. I wish it weren't expensive, but it is. But it's cheaper than buying the little cans and having that end up going to waste on you. So I want to get this in here and get this fairly well distributed. And actually, I want this tomato paste to brown a little bit. I want to caramelize the sugars in it. All right. The sound that it's making is a good sound. It's cooking, it's not burning. It's, this is actually on medium-low. You got to be real careful with cast iron not to get it too hot. Things will stick. And that's not good, and you can burn things pretty easily. So that looks good. I'm now going to go in with my spices. And remember, I always say that you always want to have some fat in there to get the flavor of the spices out. So I have here a teaspoon of ground cumin, which is a little clumping up on me, and then a teaspoon of garlic powder. And you can certainly adjust these to your taste. I like a lot of cumin and garlic powder in mine, and if you want to use fresh garlic, you certainly could. Oops, got a little bit escaping here. If you wanted to make this vegetarian instead of ground beef, you could start with some TVP, or you could use quinoa. In the days of old, when I was just out of college, I used to make this kind of thing, and instead of using ground beef, I would use short grain brown rice, which I've had a hard time finding lately. But I always found that short grain brown rice and cooked lentils are a good vegetarian substitute for ground beef. So this is looking good. It has some nice color on it from the tomatoes. It's smelling just wicked good here. So I've got my beans, and I haven't drained them because, of course, part of the whole point of chili beans is you get that chili sauce. So I'm going to just add those now. And I'm just going to stir these in. And the nice thing about this cast iron, it's holding some heat. That is looking good. It's a little soupy. It's a little soupy to put in a taco shell right now. But we're going to let it simmer and get a little bit thick. And then there's one more trick that I will show you that makes this easy to eat. So I'm going to turn this down to a simmer and let it simmer for about 5 or 10 minutes. And we'll catch you then. All right, so we've been simmering away here on a fairly low temperature for about 10 minutes, and you can see this has thickened up quite a bit. So we've concentrated the flavor from that chili sauce, and if you wanted to cook this down a little bit more, you certainly could. This will sit in a tortilla, no problems. But I've got one little step here that I have learned makes life a lot easier, and that is grab yourself one of these things. And we're not going to mash all of these beans. We just want to go in and get some of them mashed up. And the ones that are mashed up are going to act like a glue to help keep everything together. So one bean stick in there. All right, so let's see how that looks now. Yeah, see, that's a lot more coherent. In fact, I missed quite a few at the edge because I have a tripod in the way. So I'm going to go through and just really lightly hit this just a few more times with the potato masher. And, if you've got people that are, bean averse, you could just mash this all the way down and they would never know that this is full of beanie goodness. All right. So that is looking super delicious. It is time to heat up some tortillas and make some tacos. Yeah, looking good. So I'm gonna grab some tortillas and we'll come right back. So this is my favorite way to heat up our tortillas, and I've seen people make tacos and not heat up tortillas, which seems weird. I've seen people do it in the microwave, and I've certainly done that, but when I have the choice, I like to heat them up over a griddle like this. So I'm putting my hand here just kind of to get a sense of how hot this is getting. It's feeling just about right. I'm about an inch over the griddle, and it's feeling hot. So I've got some of these little banderitas, the little flag, yellow corn tortillas de maíz amarillo. And I love flour tortillas. It's just they're pure carbs and fat. And the ingredients on corn tortillas I mean, I love corn tortillas too, don't get me wrong. I love both. I mean, they're tortillas. Hello. How can you go wrong, right? I just banged into one of these pans hanging on the wall. So the ingredients are just whole grain corn, water, and a few little preservatives, and traces of food grade lime. I mean, obviously not as good as homemade, but still, they each do have 2 grams of fiber, 21 grams of carbs. They're very low in sodium, very low in fat, and they are a whole grain product. So that's the nice thing about corn tortillas. So I'm going to grab a couple here, and we're going to start heating them up. And I haven't used this griddle in a while for this, so they might stick. So the secret is, as with all things cast iron, I'm going to grab a plate to get them on. The secret is, as with all things cast iron, is to don't move them until they move themselves. So if they do stick, it's because they're kind of moist, and that's making them stick. And if you can do this, then you're okay. So I do know this side of this griddle, this side of this burner gets hotter than the other. So when I flip them, okay, I'm going to do that. You can see these have been in the fridge. There's a lot of steam coming off them, but I want to get just a little bit of char on them because that tastes so good. When I was a kid, we had a gas stove, and I would just heat these directly on the burner over an open fire. I just want to keep them moving like this. If you get too much char, that's fine. It tastes really great. Just put that on the inside. That way your taco doesn't fall apart on you. So let's see how these are looking. Yeah, that's looking good. So I'm going to let them sit here. I can't help it, but I have a tendency to play with tortillas when they're sitting here like this. I just want to get some char on them. If you can't reach in here and just grab, which some people don't like that, they're not used to working with that level of heat so close to their hands. I've been doing this since I was a little kid, so you can always just come in here and do this kind of thing. And boom, there you go. So you can keep your hands far away from the heat. But I just like to reach in there and grab them. So you can see they're getting a little bit of brown here, which is good, delicious. I mean, that char is flavor. It really is. I miss having a gas stove. They're not great for the environment, but gosh, you can get some really good char on these things when you cook them right over an open flame. Yeah, there we go. That's what we're looking for. So we're getting close. This griddle probably wasn't super hot. I've got it actually right on medium, so it's the knob is halfway between low and high. So of course you want to be careful not to get them too charred because then they just break. But this looks good. I'm going to turn the stove off and get these on a plate, and it's taco time. I'll see you over at the table. All right, well, would you look at that? I've got so many toppings on top, you can't see the filling underneath. I'm weird. I tend to put the cheese on top because I'm not a big fan of melted cheese. So I've got lettuce, I've got some chopped up Roma tomatoes, I've got some more of those onions, and I've got cheese. And of course, I've got a beer standing by. So I'm just gonna jump in and see what we've got here. That is so good. Wow. Took a bigger bite than I realized. That's so flavorful. You don't notice that you're missing half the meat. Wow, that's just absolutely amazing. So there you are, half-pound burgers. Supplement the half-pound of ground beef with a can of chili beans. It's so tasty. It's a little bit healthier. You're cutting back on some of the fat and cholesterol. You're adding in some fiber, and you're also getting the same amount of protein, probably. So, and you can see here, I did get some really good char on these tortillas. So good. So, yeah. I need to stop filming so I can finish eating. This is amazing. Oh my gosh. And that's it, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to visit my website for a free printable copy of this recipe if you want to make this.
Unlike other cooking websites, I don't spend a lot of time talking about how I was born as a small child and developed this recipe in response to something that happened 40 or 50 years ago. I'm just like, hey, do you want some good tacos that are cheap and healthy? Here you go. And then there's the recipe. And if you click on the print button, it prints it out nice and clean. It has nutrition information at the end. I cannot guarantee it's 100% accurate, but it gives you an approximation. So as always, please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this content and want to see more. I love hearing comments that people make. So, and I try to respond fairly quickly. Although sometimes life does get in the way. I'm sure you know how that goes. So, but anyway, thank you very much for watching. I will see you next week, and power to the proletariat. See you next time.